Welcome to the College Investor Audio Show, where we talk about the biggest issues impacting millennial money, from student loan debt to side hustles to building wealth. We will show you how to get out of debt so that you can build real wealth for the future.
Hey there, welcome to the College Investor Audio Show. So glad you're here today. Now today, a very important question that we're going to be answering, or at least have some thoughts on. Should student loan collection activity be delayed even further? So, the U.S. Department of Education, should they provide a transition or even a grace period for the restart of collection activity on defaulted federal education loans? They did announce on August 2021 that the payment pause and interest waiver is going to end January 31st, 2022. Student loan repayment will resume in February of 22. Collection activity for defaulted loans will also resume at that time, but should it? Very strong collection powers are at hand. When a borrower defaults on a federal student loan, the U.S. Department of Education has strong powers to compel repayment. They can garnish up to 15% of the borrower's wages administratively, meaning that they do not need to obtain a court order like private lenders do. Yikes. They can seize federal income tax refunds. They can offset up to 15% of Social Security, disability, and retirement benefit payments. Come on! The collection charges may be deducted from payments before the remainder is applied to the loan balance. Wow. So here's why. There may be an argument for the need for a transition period. Borrowers who default on their federal student loans often do so because they're experiencing economic hardship, of course. These borrowers are the ones who are most likely to have lost their jobs during the pandemic. Because they're in default, they no longer have access to deferments and forbearances that can ease their return to repayment. In addition, the American Rescue Plan Act provided advanced payment of child tax credits during the pandemic. The advanced child tax credit payments are not subject to offset to repay defaulted federal student loans. However, the child tax credits that taxpayers claim on their 21 federal income tax returns will be subject to offset. This will have a negative impact on children of borrowers who are experiencing financial distress. The federal government gives with one hand while taking back with the other. Delaying the restart of collections could allow defaulted borrowers to retain this year's income tax refund to ease the restart of collection activity. Now let's move on to a few thoughts on the impact of the pandemic on loan rehabilitation. So during the pandemic, the paused payments counted toward loan rehabilitation agreements. A loan rehabilitation agreement returns the borrower's loans to a current status and removes the default from the borrower's credit history after the borrower makes 9 out of 10 consecutive, full, voluntary, reasonable, and affordable payments on their loans. Voluntary payments do not include payments made through wage garnishment or offset of income tax refunds and Social Security benefits. Just keep that in mind. Thus, any borrower who was in a loan rehabilitation agreement at the start of the pandemic will have satisfied the requirements for rehabilitation. The restart of repayment for these borrowers presents a high risk of redefault, especially because it's happening during a pandemic with high unemployment rates. Loan rehabilitation is a one-time opportunity. If the borrower defaults again, they will no longer be able to rehabilitate their loans. Rehabilitated borrowers have options for continuing to suspend repayment if they're still experiencing financial distress, but they may need to be reminded of these options. The options include income-driven repayment. Loan rehabilitation usually involves a requirement that the borrower be switched into an income-driven repayment plan. Borrowers can ask the loan servicer to recertify their income early if they're still unemployed or underemployed. Deferments and forbearances. Once the loan has been rehabilitated, the borrower regains eligibility for deferments and forbearances. They may be able to get an economic hardship deferment, unemployment deferment, or a general forbearance. Each of these deferments and forbearances has a 3-year limit. Precedent for a transition period. All right, so there are several precedents for providing a transition period. Wage garnishment and financial hardship. Borrowers can ask for a review of the wage garnishment amount if they're experiencing financial hardship. And by that, we mean the borrower is unable to pay for basic living expenses, the borrower's spouse, and the borrower's dependents. The change in the wage garnishment amount or suspension of wage garnishment is effective for 6 months. Wage garnishment and unemployment. There's an exclusion from administrative wage garnishment, of course, if the borrower has been involuntarily separated from employment and have not been reemployed continuously for at least 12 months. And there's an 80-day delay before tax refund offset. After a borrower receives a notice that their federal income tax refunds will be offset, they have 65 days to file a request to review records relating to the offset. This is followed by a 15-day period for reviewing the records. Borrowers may be able to avoid offset of their 2021 income tax refunds by filing their 2021 federal income tax returns early, before collection activity starts. That's very early. The U.S. Department of Education could use its legal authority under the HEROES Act of 2003 to provide a 6-month or longer transition period before restarting collection activities. This would let the defaulted borrowers retain their 2020 federal income tax refunds. And that would be welcome, wouldn't it? And that is our quick show for today. We hope it answered some questions for you. If you still have some questions about student loan collection, where you can go, how you can get help, and of course, all the different plans and things you can get into to help, you can find it at thecollegeinvestor.com. Thanks again for stopping by today. Hey, we'll talk to you again real soon.